The headlines. The truth is our priority. We give justice to your curiosity. All you need to know about guiding principles and teaching strategies? Only here in Group 4 Patrol. Hello there, good day. I am your news anchor, Damil Bohol. According to the information I gathered, these guiding principles in the selection and use of teaching strategies can play a vital role for us future teachers to mold us for the betterment. To report us the headline 1, this is Rachel Basalio. Rachel?
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, classmates. I am Rachel Basalio from the Group 4. My topic is learning is an active process. Indeed, learning is an active process. We future educators must actively engage the learners in learning activities if we want them to learn what we intend to teach. Because nobody can learn for us. It only means that students must participate and collaborate others and apply concepts to the real world. It is more determined and great in solving problems. We future teachers must teach students to set their own goals and work towards them. Students would understand that it is perfectly okay to fail. By learning from their past mistakes, they can work harder and strive to perform better next time. Learning is an active process. We learn by doing. Knowledge that it is used sticks in your mind. In fact, I believe in this statement that goes, what I hear, I forget. What I say, I remember. What I do, I understand. Tell me and I remember. Show me and I recall. Involve me and I will return. This Confucian scholar makes a strong point that when it comes to learning, hearing is not as good as saying, saying is not as good as experience, and true learning is only evident when experience produces an action. Once again, I'm Rachel Basalio. Back to you, Ma'am Demel.
Thank you, Rachel. Truly, learning is an active process. But, in order for us to have more knowledge about the headline 2, here's Erwin Binavente. Erwin?
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, classmates. I'm going to discuss the more senses that are involved in learning, the more and the better the learning, which is under the guiding principle in the selection and the use of teaching strategies. As per the research of Wolfe 2001, humans are intensely visual animals. We take in more information visually than through any of other senses. Humans are intensely visual animals. The eyes contains nearly 75% of the body receptors and send millions of signals along the optic nerves to visual processing center of the brain. We take in more information visually than through any of other senses. So we're saying here that the senses should to focus on is the sense of sight and the other sense will be followed. But of course, it's good if there's an integration o usama nimo ang tanan nga senses because the more senses involved in learning, process, then the more they could learn what you are teaching them. Next is the multi-sensory aids. What is multi-sensory aids? Based on the graph shown, these are the 5 senses, which are the sight 75%, hearing 13%, touch 6%, smell 3%, and taste 3%. This graph implies the use of teaching methodology that makes us more visual aids than audio aids. What is seen and heard are learned more than what are just seen or just heard. A combination of audio and visual or AV aids, which means audio-visual. However, it is far more effective. Most and best effective, of course, is the combination of 3 or more senses, which is called the multi-sensory aids. Based on my research in educational planners, since we tackled here the visual, we have based on the learning style. They have 3 primary learning style, which are the auditory, visual, and the tactile. Actually, since we tackled about visual in this principle, visual learner, you learn by reading or seeing picture, you understand and remember things by sight. You can picture what? Remember that you need to see things, not just hear things, but to learn well. We should remember in this principle that the more senses you use, the more learning you've learned. That's all, and thank you.
Thank you, Erwin. To help us elaborate more for the headline 3 that says, emotion has the power to increase retention and learning. Here's Glea May Binagatan. Glea May.
Thank you, Ms. Damil. The third guiding principle in the selection and use of teaching strategy is emotion has the power to increase retention and learning. Do you agree with this? Ako mo agree jud ko ani. In fact, many scholars mo agree nga ang emotion mo play a vital role sa students' learning process. Kay how a student feel affects how he or she learns. Kung they are in a state of, example, kahadlok, then they're not going to take in information because ang iyang kahadlok maunamay mo patigbabang. So, as a teacher, we have to create strategies on how the student can learn effectively. We have to create an environment wherein students can learn and develop emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is commonly called as emotional quotient or EQ. Kung naa ka aning emotional intelligence, so you are a pro on controlling your emotions. You know how to manage your emotions, and by that, as a teacher, you can create an environment wherein it is safe for learning. If ang estudyante makadevelop aning emotional intelligence, then he or she can learn effectively. Danielle Goleman outlined 5 skills involved in emotional intelligence. 1. We have being aware of one's emotion. 2. Managing emotions. 3. Motivating oneself. 4. Empathizing. 5th. Relating well with others in a group. Those 5 skills are important as we engage social relationships. Positive social relationships in school, such as working well with others and developing meaningful personal relationships, are often associated with positive academic achievement. Teachers also need to understand how their own emotional intelligence influences the classroom. A teacher's positive state of mind and her ability to manage her emotions and relationships productively are a model for her students. Teachers demonstrate how to express emotion and manage relationships when they communicate their feelings to students and show how to build respectful relationships with others. So, as a guiding principle in the selection and use of teaching strategies, we have to consider that emotion has the power to increase retention and learning because emotions have an impact on learning. Emotion influence the student's ability to process information. For that, it is important to create a positive, emotionally safe learning environment for the students to learn effectively. This is May Binagatan reporting.
Learning is meaningful when it is connected to students' everyday life. In fact, I interviewed two persons I knew that already earned a title in teaching to give their opinion about this. Thus, here it is.
Hi, do you believe that learning is meaningful when it is connected to students' everyday life? Yes, definitely yes.
Yes, because it helps the learners to function well in the future.
As you can see, some of their answers are yes, because tinuod man sa jud nga learning is meaningful when it is connected to students' everyday life. But how? In order to meet this, there are 5 ways to make learning more meaningful. 1. Make the content as meaningful as possible. This can be achieved when students are offered the opportunity to link their classroom activities to real-life experiences. 2. Adopt a student-centered approach. When students are more involved in designing their learning experience, they end up having better grasp of the goal of the lesson and are more attached to the learning outcome. 3. Promote self-knowledge. The overarching goal of learning, as opposed to education, is to help learners function well in the future. 4. Bring the real world to your classroom. Each time we attempt to solve a problem creatively or think about something in a novel way, we produce physical connection in our brains. 5. Share knowledge and resources. As a teacher, you won't be armed with all the answers on how to engage your students. You might want to ask colleagues for strategies that work for them. Always scout for resources to help you. On the other hand, one of the teaching styles is called banking system of education. For instance, we teach today, ask students to copy and memorize what we taught them. The following day we test them on how much they have retained from what we taught yesterday. Period. We repeat the process day in and day out, deposit information into their heads, which are likened to empty receptacles, then withdraw the same in a test. At the end of the term, we withdraw everything in the final examinations, and so, when students go back for the next term, their minds are empty again. Dear future teachers, please be mindful on these tips, for it will help us navigate the classroom and provide a more meaningful learning experience to our students soon enough. But more importantly, we need to seize every opportunity to have conversations with our students about what matters to them. Let us observe them more intently and take note of their interests and aspirations, and make sure to take this into account when preparing our everyday lesson. And this ends my report. Here's Jayan Bornea. Jayan?
Yes, Damil. Good teaching goes beyond recall of information. Good thinking concerns itself with higher order thinking skills to develop creative and critical thinking. Most teaching is confined to recall information and comprehension. Teaching should reach the levels of application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation to hone our students' thinking skills. As a future educator, we need to test our learners whether they are still be able to recall the information during discussion. One example for this principle is when the teacher called the students to answer a particular problem in connection to their topic, and the student answered based on his analysis of the theorem as he applied it to the problem. After that, the teacher asked the learners whether their classmates' answer was correct, thus evaluating his work. All of this process involves application, analysis, and evaluation, which is beyond recall of information. And this is JN Burnia reporting, Group 4 Patrol. Back to you, Damil.
Thank you, JN. And here's Laarni Bungon for the headline 6. Laarni.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Laarni Bungon reporting. An integrated teaching approach is far more effective than teaching isolated bits of information. Yes, an integrated teaching is more effective than teaching an isolated bits of information. Kirkus and Salandanan claim that an instructional approach is integrated when it considers the multiple intelligences and varied learning style of students. We were made to think that human intelligence comprised only of linguistic and mathematical or logical intelligences. But with Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences theory, we are introduced to 7 more intelligences. In addition to this, linguistic and mathematical, namely spatial, linguistic, musical, body kinesthetic, intrapersonal, interpersonal, logical, naturalist, and existentialist intelligences. The visual or spatial intelligences allows people to comprehend maps and other type of graphical information. The verbal linguistic intelligence refers to an individual's ability to analyze information and produce work that involves writing language or written language, such as speeches, books, and emails. The musical intelligence enables individuals to produce and make meaning of different types of sound. The body kinesthetic intelligence entails using one's own body to create products or solve problems. The intrapersonal intelligence refers to person's ability to recognize and assess those same characteristics within themselves. The interpersonal intelligence reflects an ability to recognize and understand other people's mood, desire, motives, and intentions. The logical and mathematical intelligence describes the ability to develop equations and proofs, make calculation, and solve abstract problems. The naturalist intelligence refers to the ability to identify and distinguish among different types of plants, animals, and weather formation found in the natural world. The existentialist intelligence involves an individual's ability to use collective values and intuition to understand others and the world around them. There are some research findings about the brain, how it works, according to Wolf. First is, without rehearsal or constant attention, information remains in the working memory for only about 15 to 20 seconds. If we notice, if we read something and we don't review it, it will only last for 15 seconds. That is why it is very important to pay constant attention, and that is the very reason why teacher gave assignments or homework, so that students can have constant practice. So there will be a retention in learning. Second is learning is a process of building neural networks. There are three levels of learning. First is concrete, symbolic. To illustrate, you see a small furry four-legged animal and your father tells you that it is an animal called dog. This experience will store in your brain in an actual physiological connection between neurons. In this, or in your experience of dog in your neighborhood, you will realize that dogs come in different shapes, sizes, and colors. All this information will be incorporated in your dog network. You are out for a walk, you see a small furry four-legged animal and you say it's a dog. And your father tells you that it's not a dog, but it's a cat. Your brain now has to begin forming neural network containing information about cats. Then your parents bring you to the zoo. You are exposed to a large number of creatures you have not seen before. Your parents tell you that they are all animals. Your brain takes all the information and begins to fit into the previous established animal network. With experience of animals, your animal network will become stronger. So, this is the level, the concrete level. Next is now you are older and your parents no longer take you to the zoo or buy you picture books. You have your way of expanding neural network of animals. Later, you see picture of animals in a book that your mother reads you. You quickly match the name of the animal to its picture. Your repeated exposure to the picture in the animal book can make the more exotic animal much more meaningful than if you had never visited the zoo. That's the symbolic level. Now that you are older and your parents no longer take you to the zoo or buy you picture books, what is your way of expanding the neural network of animals? It's probably that you can now discuss animals you've never seen, whether real or imaginary. That's the abstract level. Third, our brain have difficulty comprehending very large number because we have nothing in our experience to hook to them. Example, to help students understand that sound travels faster through solid than gas, one 5th grade teacher has several students become molecules by first distributing themselves far apart as a gas, then closer together as in solid. One student represents the sound and touches the first molecule and says beep. This molecule then touches the next and so on until the sound has traveled through all the molecules. The fourth one, the eye contains nearly 70% of the body's sensory receptor and sends millions of signals every second along the optic nerve to the visual processing of the brain. The capacity of the long-term memory for pictures seems almost unlimited. Several studies shows how well the mind processes and remember visual information. This is very common that we hear the says or expression, I'll never forget a face. No? I see what you mean. Or I can picture but I can't recall the name. Diba? So familiar. Fifth, there is little doubt when information is embedded in music or rhyme. Its recall is easier than when it is in prose. So, when you ask to write a pambansang out, I bet you have to sing the song to remember the lyrics, right? That is very common. If we try to remember, we associated that in a song, and there is no doubt that when information is embedded in music or rhyme, it's easier to recall. Then we come to the brain-based strategies. First is involve students in real-life authentic problem solving. So give students real problem scenario kasi mas dali siya masaktan, mas dali makarelate ang student, so mas dali ma-retain ang learning. Second is using project to increase meaning and motivation. So, di ba, when we are giving project, we are so excited to do that. We feel so belong. I mean, the participation and the cooperation is there. And second is simulation and role play as meaning maker. So, di ba, when we are giving role playing na mga part, yun ana, we're so excited no, to do our part, to do our character, ma-internalize na to. So, mas ma-remember and mas masaktan. Fourth, classroom strategies using visual processing. So, na siya saying nga ginoon nga, a picture is worth 10,000 words. No? Nindot ko na ay visual aids. So, mas ma-appreciate and ma-picture na to. Going back to kuan, katong sa how brain works nga the capacity of long-term memory for pictures seems almost unlimited. And diba, the eyes contain nearly 70% of body's sensory receptor and send millions of signal every second along optic nerves to visual processing the brain. So, diba, we always prepare a good visual aids na to catch students' attention. Next is songs, jingles, and raps. So, diba, when we are given the chance, diba, mas excited, it's proactive ang learning, no? Nga kanang we are learning is personal. So, when we are asked before, ako maka-remember ko nga kanang jingle, songs, raps, murmur like, wow, kanang mas, you will feel that mas cooperative ka. You want to cooperate more, and going back, the retention, the learning is very strong. Yeah. 6, mnemonic strategies. Mnemonic strategies. These mnemonic strategies assist students in recalling important information. For example, katong poems, we remember number of days each month with the help of the rhyme. Katong poem, no? 30 days has September, April, June, and November. 31 days for all the rest. Exact February has 28, which is less. This happens 3 years in 4 until a leap year gives it 1 day more. Diba? Mas maka-recall ta, like, mas ma-recall na to ba? Going back, brain sometimes information and learning is, we tend to associate mana nga, diba, maka-remember mo kung aning ang poem, no? Or like, so familiar. Tingnan na siya. So, next is writing strategies. So, make sure students write their own word problem and make them ask their classmates to solve them. So, when we write, diba, mas ma-retain siya, mas maka-remember yun ka. So, balik na sad nga, let the students get involved, engage in learning. So, the more they experience, the more mas happen, and the more there is retention in learning. Okay. Next is active review students. So, gani siya nga, you will let your students do the review about the lesson. So, recap, like to ask the students what, if anybody has remember what are the topic last meeting, and then the students will ask the other classmates what they remember said. So, kanama. So, you will test the memory, the long-term memory unsa ilang na-remember. So, mas active, they will be more participative, and ang atmosphere in the classroom is more friendly. Next is hands-on activities. So, give more hands-on activities. Concrete experience is one of the best way to make long-lasting neural connection. Mahal siya giingon ni Aristotle nga, what we have to learn, we learn by doing. So, there is no such thing as best teaching method. The best method is the one that works, the one that yields result. No? So, very sagot-ako lang siya. And an integrated approach is also interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. Touch the other aspect of life outside school. For example, if you teach science, you integrate and connect the topic care for environment with the kinds of pollution and global climate changes within the science subject itself. This is interdisciplinary. Or if your content in science is used to teach grammar and values in the languages, this is multidisciplinary. This integration is one thing that is emphasized in the K-12 curricula. So, mana siya nga, an integrated approach is also interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. And an instructional approach is also integrated when it includes the acquisition of knowledge, skills, as well as values. Relate your subject with other subjects. Multidisciplinary. Okay, and that is all. This is Laarni Bungon reporting. Back to you, Ma'am Damil.
Once again, this is the Damil Bohol that says, the truth is our priority. We give justice already to your curiosity. Once again, this is Group 4 Patrol. Thank you and have a good day.